Good evening, you're watching News in English. I'm Sona Tumanyan. Coming up in the first part of the program, the symbolism of Mount Ararat, the security issues, and the uncertain fate of the Armenian prisoners, plus a new bill in the U.S. Congress, and our interview with the former co-chair of the Armenian Assembly of America, Anthony Barsamian. Stay tuned. Pashinyan on security. Is the army a guarantee? Mount Ararat, a cherished national symbol or merely a territorial marker? Captives in limbo, Azerbaijani Red Cross closed. Will the peace agenda break the deadlock? The political dance between Trump, Pashinyan, and Aliyev continues. Trump's trip and the $145 million, an interview with Anthony Barsamian, former co-chairman of the Armenian Assembly of America. Armenia's work week kicked off with explosive statements on national security, as Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan declared that long-standing military alliances have failed and doubled down on a fragile peace agenda with historic rival Azerbaijan. Speaking at the Comprehensive Security and Resilience 2025 International Conference, Pashinyan forcefully reiterated a message his government has championed for the past month. Lasting peace with Azerbaijan is the only way forward. This mantra has been echoed by top officials, from the foreign minister to the Security Council secretary, on both domestic and international stages. However, the peace treaty remains a document of promises, not facts. While a draft agreement offers what some see as the sprouts of peace, no final deal has been signed. The process is so delicate that a recent promise not to back down was reportedly coaxed out of Azerbaijan's president by a persistent Armenian journalist in Washington.
First of all, I'd like to say that today we initialed the peace deal, which was in the process of negotiations for quite a while. The fact that it is initialed here, in the capital number one of the world, in the office number one of the world, and in front of the great president of the United States, means that there should be no doubts and no suspicions that any of the sides would step back. If any of us, Prime Minister Pashinyan or myself, had in mind to step back, we wouldn't have come here. So you can be absolutely sure, as well as Azerbaijani community, that what has happened today will result in peace, long-lasting peace, eternal peace in the Caucasus.
In a significant strategic pivot, Pashinyan also redefined the role of Armenia's military. Its mission, he asserted, is now strictly limited to defending the nation's internationally recognized territory of 29,743 square kilometers. A clear signal that Armenia's ambitions and discourse must fit within its sovereign borders. But the Prime Minister's most stunning admission was a direct critique of past security doctrines. While military political alliances and a strong army are traditionally seen as guarantees of safety, Pashinyan bluntly stated that history has proven that this formula doesn't work. With all certainties dismantled, critical questions now hang in the air. Pashinyan noted that true peace requires more than just a ceasefire, but is the proposed unblocking of regional roads a genuine guarantee for security or just another gamble? For now, that question remains unanswered.
Security is the process of reducing one's own vulnerability, the Prime Minister stated during the Comprehensive Security and Resilience 2025 International Conference in Yerevan, adding that in the past, the tools for ensuring our security were the army and military political alliances, but history has proven that this formula does not work.
The CSTO was stating that Azerbaijan is as much a brotherly state for it as Armenia is, and that the CSTO recognizes the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. Moreover, we have never been confronted with this sentence.
According to Nikol Pashinyan, the most important among the primary tools for ensuring security is legitimacy, and that in Prague, by recognizing the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, the first step was taken to also recognize the legitimacy of the Republic of Armenia, because simply not shooting is not yet peace.
Why did I recognize the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan? To recognize the territorial integrity of Armenia, because there is simply no other way. We are consistently implementing this strategy based on legitimacy. and it is this strategy that has made peace possible.
As the Prime Minister put it, when the #1 tool for ensuring your security is the army, then you have no security. Yerevan today has broader opportunities to acquire armaments, but the army must be the last among the country's security tools.
You have to make it so that the army is the 15th or 20th, the 100th tool. By doing so, you are not belittling the army. If we want the army to protect us, we must protect the army. And the 100 layers of security that exist before the army are for protecting the soldier and the country.
Today, we are making decisions that will ensure security for centuries, the Prime Minister stated, adding that peace has been established between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Let them consider us traitors today, but in 50, 100 years, Armenia will be a state. Armenia has never been as secure during its independence as it is now, Pashinyan emphasized. Mary Danielyan, ReOpen Media.
Even as Armenia's Prime Minister publicly champions a new era of security and formally recognizes Azerbaijan's territorial integrity, a starkly different reality is exploding on the ground. In a dramatic incident, Azerbaijani sources report that a man from Nagorno-Karabakh identified as Karin Avanasyan was wounded and arrested after allegedly attempting an armed attack. He was reportedly carrying grenades. This raw act of defiance stands in sharp contrast to the carefully orchestrated scenes playing out in a parallel reality just miles away. And the town of Ivanyan, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev was filmed planting mulberry trees, a symbolic act, while speaking of the very just peace he has brought to the region. And in a surreal geopolitical twist, US President Donald Trump has reportedly been waving a white flag since August 8, signaling his readiness to prevent any attempt to disrupt this peace. The split screen is jarring. In one frame, a leader in Yerevan speaks of peace, readies, and recognized borders. In the other, a wounded man is arrested in the conflict zone, while a victorious president engages in a powerful act of propaganda on conquered land. It's a visceral reminder that while politicians talk, the wounds of war remain open, and the peace looks very different depending on which side of the line you stand.
Azerbaijani sources wrote on Sunday that a local resident, Karin Avanasyan, was arrested in Stepanakert, armed with a Kalashnikov automatic rifle and grenades. Within hours, they reported new details from the incident, stating, "Today, a resident of the city of Stepanakert, Armenian Karin Albertovich Avanasyan, born in 1967, went from his home to a forested area near the city, where he had previously hidden a Kalashnikov rifle, 4 boxes of ammunition, and also 5 grenades. While attempting to approach the location of an event in the city of Stepanakert, he was arrested by police. At that moment, Avanasyan opened fire from the automatic rifle and threw 3 grenades, showing armed resistance to the police. From the return fire, Avanasyan was wounded and arrested. 1 police officer was wounded. What is noteworthy here is that Avanasyan's every step is recorded frame by frame by a camera, as if it were the filming of a crime thriller. Former Artsakh human rights defender Artak Beglaryan is confident that there is a high probability of disinformation and falsehood here.
Since I do not have clear data, I cannot say for sure. In the list I know, there was no person named Karin Avanasyan, but I do not rule out that there could have been such a person because I did not have the complete list.
Political scientist Yervand Bozoyan notes that different versions of the incident can be discussed, considering that 120,000 Armenians from Artsakh were subjected to ethnic cleansing and forcibly displaced. It is not ruled out that this person, being in a severe psychological and stressful situation, could have taken such a step.
Judging from the videos of the Azerbaijani media, there was an impression that this person calmly, in broad daylight, goes and takes all that stuff. I do not rule out that this whole thing could be some kind of staged process.
Analysts consider it obvious that the Azerbaijani authorities are trying to use this example to show the world that Armenians are supposedly potential terrorists. And, as the political scientist notes, if they had remained in Artsakh, they would not have been able to integrate with Azerbaijan.
There is naturally fertile ground for this. For understandable reasons, while the world and the leaders of both Armenia and Azerbaijan were speaking of the need to resolve this issue through a compromise, it was resolved not through a compromise, but completely on Azerbaijan's terms.
Bozoyan is confident that the incident shows that in the future, Azerbaijan can stage something similar at any moment and use it as a pretext to break a pre-signed peace treaty at any time.
There must be a serious level of guarantees in the Armenian-Azerbaijani process. In all international conflicts, no conflict is resolved without guarantees. This is a unique case where, unfortunately, through the efforts of the Armenian authorities, everything was done so that there would be no such guarantee.
Moreover, Azerbaijan can start military operations against Armenia at any moment. The political scientist is convinced that even if we consider this an accidental case and that Azerbaijan has no desire to use this situation against Armenia, there is no guarantee that in a few years, the same Azerbaijan, based on some circumstances, will not want to use such staged events. Today, the Azerbaijani side published another video where a person named Karin Avanesyan, allegedly speaking Azerbaijani in Artsakh 2 years ago, says that he received an Azerbaijani passport in 1992. It is also clear from the video that the citizen has an unbalanced appearance and inadequate behavior. According to Artak Biglarian's data, 10 to 12 Artsakh residents live in Artsakh today, some of them with Russian roots, but having lived in Artsakh for generations. The Armenians for whom data is available are solitary individuals or people with mental and intellectual problems.
The Azerbaijani side will, with high probability, use this to give another dose of Armeniaphobia to its society and to propagate hatred against all Armenians.
According to experts, Baku will also use Avanesyan's trial as a propaganda weapon, so it is necessary to develop a proper toolkit for counteraction. Nareen Gukasyan, ReOpen Media.
As a high-stakes $145 million US-backed peace initiative aims to kill the long-simmering conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, a desperate humanitarian crisis is deepening in the shadows. For Armenian prisoners who were held in Baku, the diplomatic push appears to be a dead end, leaving them more isolated and vulnerable than ever. The situation reached a critical impasse following Azerbaijan's decision to shut down the Red Cross mission, the sole vital channel for communication with the captives. That lifeline is now severed, plunging the fate of the prisoners into an information black hole, and critics say the US has yet to step into the fill the void. While high-level officials in Armenia insist that the prisoner issue has been raised with Washington and that serious work is underway, they concede it's too early to speak of any tangible results. The human cost of this diplomatic paralysis is starkly illustrated by the case of Vigen Elchekcan, held captive for 5 agonizing years. A month ago, he launched a desperate hunger strike. Today, his condition and whether the strike has even ended remains unknown. What is known are the chilling reports of his subjection to both physical and psychological torment. This crisis unfolds against the backdrop of Azerbaijan's unyielding stance that all issues related to the former region of Nagorno-Karabakh are closed. Baku has systematically dismantled international oversight mechanisms, from the shuttering of the OSCE Minsk group to the recent expulsion of the Red Cross, effectively sidelining the prisoner issue. Meanwhile, the highly criticized fabricated trials of Artakh's former political and military leaders continue, which observers describe as theatrical performances designed to push false narratives and solidify Baku's control.
Getting information about the 23 Armenian captives held in Azerbaijani prisons is becoming more difficult by the day. As of this month, the activities of the Red Cross in Azerbaijan have been halted. It was the only independent international body that could visit the Armenians held in Baku's prisons and learn about their true condition and health issues. It also delivered necessary clothing and hygiene items, as well as facilitated phone or video calls with their families. Vigen Elchekcan is one of 7 civilians who has been in a Baku prison for 5 years. He began a hunger strike 36 days ago. Elchekcan's lawyer, Luciana Minasian, who lives in Argentina, told Pastinfo that she has no information on whether he has stopped or is continuing the hunger strike.
We believe he will continue the hunger strike regardless of the consequences. He can no longer endure the prison conditions.
The 46-year-old Elchekcan is a citizen of both Armenia and Lebanon. He was abducted by Azerbaijani soldiers on November 10, 2020, one day after the ceasefire agreement was signed. Vigen's wife, Linda, actively posts on X, seeking ways to free her husband from the prison in Baku.
they don't allow him to speak with me Arabic. But when I speak on social media and I said I can't speak Armenian, I don't know. My children speak, but not me. I'm Arabic. So I want to understand Viken I want him to understand me because I understand Armenian, but I can't talk. So he can't understand me, and he is very angry because he want to understand what I said. So he go to hunger strike because of this, and they allowed him that he speak Arabic all the time with me.
Linda currently has no information about Vigen's condition or the progress of his trial.
I don't have any idea he is alive or no. He is good or no. So what can I do? I try to write every day on social media, to make videos, to remember that he is in prison. He need us. All prisoners need us. They all treat like we can. I don't think only we can. I think all like we can. I'm surprised uh, of the families. No one speak. If all speak about they loved one, we will make difference. You understand me? So only I speak and I don't have any result.
During his 5 years of captivity, Yulchechin has been subjected to physical and psychological violence, his wife says. Additionally, according to reports, Yulchechin has been deprived of adequate food and medical care.
I spoke with Viken the first in this month. He called me because since the Red Cross left their office in Azerbaijan, so we called not hear any news about the hostage. But they allowed him to call me twice. The first time his condition was not good. He was suffering from pain, and then the second call after a month like this, I heard my husband voice, but I could hardly recognize him. His voice was very weak, and he could hardly speak, you know. And when I asked him why your voice like this, he told me that he is on hunger strike for 20 days.
That was the last time Linda was able to speak with Vigen.
But I tried to give him a hope that he will be released soon. And I think, I'm lying. I don't know. He say goodbye to me and goodbye to his children, and he said goodbye.
Since January 17th, a fabricated trial of the former military political leaders of Artsakh has been underway in Azerbaijan. Among the accused are former presidents Arkady Gugukasyan, Bako Sahakyan, and Araya Karutsian, former commander of the Defense Army Levan Manatsakanyan, former foreign minister David Babayan, and others. The case of former state minister and philanthropist Ruben Vardanyan is being heard in separate proceedings. Ani Hovanesyan, ReOpen Media.
By the way, in this context, Armenian human rights has something to do. Armenian human rights defender Anahit Manasyan has officially proposed establishing communication with her Azerbaijani counterpart on urgent humanitarian issues, but has received no response, her office reported. The institution detailed the steps it has taken to engage with international partners and the Azerbaijani ombudsman, particularly in response to pressing cases involving Armenian captives held in Azerbaijan. Beyond its peace agenda, the Armenian government has ignited a national firestorm with a decision to remove the iconic image of Mount Ararat from its national symbols, a move seen by many as a shocking surrender of identity. A public debate is underway in Armenia regarding a new government initiative described as Real Armenia, which seeks to align national identity with the country's current borders. Central to this debate is a proposal to alter the use of a symbol that is located in Turkey but remains deeply significant to the Armenian heritage. The question tearing through Armenian society is stark. Is this a groundbreaking step forward, a nation untethered from historical claims and past grievances, or a dangerous precedent for abandoning the cornerstones of a national identity? In the high-stakes world of national symbols, history offers a stark lesson from a defeated Germany. But as Armenia debates erasing its sacred Mount Ararat from its emblems, many are warning this is not the same story. After its devastating defeat in World War I, the German Empire was dead. Its black, white, and red flag, a symbol of the monarchy and military that lost the war, was torn down with the regime. The new democratic Weimar Republic chose a different flag, the black, red, and gold of the 19th century revolution. The message was unmistakable. The old system failed and was gone. It was a new government with new symbols for a new era. The facts, as they say, spoke for themselves. The basis in Germany was obvious. In Armenia, many are asking, what is the basis if not a concession to the victor? The backlash was swift and visceral. Since the announcement, Armenian social media has been flooded with protests. Facebook users have defiantly posted their favorite photos of the snow-capped peak. Others have shared images of their current passports, a final glimpse of the ink-stained emblem that will officially vanish on November 1. The controversy is unfolding in the context of proposed constitutional reforms that many see as a precursor to a final peace agreement. The government's retainal was recently articulated in a direct statement by a high-ranking official. At the same security conference, Armenian Security Council Secretary Armen Grigoryan offered a jaw-dropping analogy. When asked how this painful transformation affects national resilience, he responded, "If you are building an apartment, you shouldn't have pictures on your walls that might cause other emotions for your neighbor." The implication was unmistakable. The image of Mount Ararat on Armenian document is viewed as a provocation by Turkey. The timing is explosive. The decision comes just as Armenia and Turkey special envoys Ruben Rubinyan and Serdar Kılıç are in talks to finally open the long-closed border. With a majestic mountain looming in the background of these delicate negotiations, the move is seen by critics as a major concession. For countless Armenians, the mountain is more than a political bargaining chip. Its meaning is captured in the immortal lines of poet Evocabank. As a road of unreachable glory, I love my Massis mountain. It's a love that transcends all geopolitical borders and psychological turmoil. By the way, Mount Ararat is the centerpiece of Armenia's national coat of arms.
Behind me is Ararat, one of our national and religious symbols, whose image will no longer be on Armenia's entry and exit stamps here as of November 1st. According to the authorities, the removal of Ararat from the stamp is part of the Real Armenia ideology. It is unclear how, for example, the image of Ivazovsky against the backdrop of Ararat on a recently issued Armenian dram banknote fits into this ideology, given that Ivazovsky did not live or create in either historical or real Armenia. The government passed the decision on changing the stamp as a non-reported item on its agenda. According to the National Security Service, this is merely a technical change to reduce the risks of forgery and to improve the recognizability, clear visibility, and legibility of the markings. For some reason, the heavy burden of clarifying the controversial decision was quickly taken on by the newly appointed minister, Arsen Torosyan, even though the ministry he heads has nothing to do with border crossing stamps.
The justifications for the decision are very simple. The stamps have been brought into line with modern requirements for border crossings, as well as with the ideology of real Armenia.
The visual difference between the old and new versions of the stamp is the removal of Ararat and the formulation border control checkpoint. According to Torosyan, some opposition circles have launched a new information attack against this decision. He notes that in many countries, such stamps are no longer even in use.
This is another attempt to erase and make people forget the history of Hayt, that is, Armenian history. In order to make people forget, the eye must not see it. You remove it from the mind and from sight, so one does not read it, does not remember it. In other words, the gradual Mancourtization of our people is underway. It is a program for the loss of memory.
This topic has caused great enthusiasm in the Turkish press and on social media. The Turkish NTV, in its coverage, emphasized that Armenia has taken this step against the backdrop of normalizing relations with Turkey, and Haber 7 attributed the previous refusal to abandon the symbol of Mount Ararat to Armenian stubbornness.
The Armenian government, which had given a green light for the Zangezur corridor connecting Turkey with the Turkic world, is now abandoning its claim regarding Mount Ararat.
According to the ruling party MP Artur Hovhannisyan, state symbols should derive from the principle of statehood and should not send dangerous messages to neighbors.
The Republic of Armenia proceeds from its state symbols, and the stamp of the Republic of Armenia, which is imprinted in passports, must express the symbolism related to the state of the Republic of Armenia. The state symbols, and therefore, should also be devoid of emotional, sentimental symbols.
It was 2 years ago that Nikol Pashinyan said, "All our problems lie between Ararat and Aragats, between dream and reality." It is interesting that in the symbol of the ruling party, one can see an image resembling that dream, Ararat. Pashinyan uses relations with neighbors as an example.
Imagine you have a legitimate territory defined by a cadastre, but you keep a picture at home that symbolizes that your neighbor is not worthy of what he has, and every year you refresh the colors of that picture.
And according to the doctor of philology, Haykazun Alvurtsyan, Ararat has always been in Armenia, not within the current state, but it is a part of eastern Armenia, and it is not a bad thing to remember that there is a homeland that was yours.
The Armenian people have always rallied around Mount Ararat. Even if they lost their statehood, the hope of its restoration was again that mountain. It was restored again around Armenian statehood. Over the years, haven't we lost our kingdom several times and restored it again around Ararat? Now they are depriving us of a future.
He recalls 2008, when before a football match with Turkey, the symbol of Ararat was removed from the national team's logo. According to the doctor, a people that renounces its history has not only no future, but also no present. But he is convinced that it will not be possible to remove Mount Ararat from the Armenians' hearts and memory. Simon Hovhannisyan, Levon Voskanyan, ReOpen Media.
And now let me mention that weeks after a high-stakes Washington meeting, President Donald Trump is still enthusiastically taking credit for brokering peace between historic rivals, Armenia and Azerbaijan, flooding social media with posts from the summit. In this latest dispatch, Trump declared it a great honor to help settle the war between Azerbaijan and Armenia. He also celebrated what he described as a budding friendship with these two great leaders and people. This will be an eternal friendship for me, Trump wrote, before adding with characteristic modesty, but more importantly for the United States of America. The price, it seems, is a three-way street. Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan quickly echoed the sentiment. He responded to Trump's post by reaffirming his commitment to the institutionalization of peace and the further work on the implementation of TRIP. He also extended his gratitude for Trump's mediation of that historic agreement with Azerbaijan, which no one had yet achieved. Completing the triangle of mutual admiration, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev joined the chorus. He published his own photo showing him alongside Prime Minister Pashinyan, both strategically positioned in front of a portrait of Donald Trump. Aliyev wrote that he highly appreciates the president's role in advancing the peace process between the two nations. The peacekeeper, however, does not hesitate when calling Armenia Albania. Let's watch without commentary.
And the fact that that one's not settled. To think that we settled Azerbaijan and Albania as an example. It was going on for years. It was never going to be settled. If you remember, the prime minister and the presidents, they were there for many years. They said, when they were in my office, we settled.
U.S. Representatives Dana Tatas and Gas Balarikis have introduced the Azerbaijan Sanctions Review Act of 2025 in Congress. The proposed legislation would require the administration to review the application of sanctions against senior Azerbaijani officials under the Global Magnitsky Act. The bill references alleged war crimes, human rights violations, and the detention of Armenian prisoners of war and civilians by Baku. The bill stipulates that the U.S. president would have 180 days to determine whether more than 50 specified Azerbaijani officials meet the criteria for sanctions under the Magnitsky Act of Sanction 7031C of the State Department Appropriation Act. The list of individuals for review includes military commanders, prosecutors, and judges, as well as the former leaders of Artsakh who are currently detained in Baku. The Armenian National Committee of America issued a statement in support of the initiative, describing it as an important step toward accountability for the Aliyev administration and toward securing the release of Armenian prisoners. To get more perspective on this new legislation and the recent meeting in Washington, I sat down with Anthony Barsamian, former co-chairman of the Armenian Assembly of America. Here is an excerpt from the interview, and the complete interview will be available on the ReNews English YouTube page. We'll be back with more news right after. Hello, my guest today is Anthony Barsamian, former co-chairman of the Armenian Assembly of America. Thank you for agreeing to this interview.
My pleasure. Nice to meet you.
The basic topic of our conversation will be the trilateral meeting in Washington. And to be precise, the Trump's trip, the investment from the U.S. Department, I mean the $145 million. And to start with, I want to mention that it's not a secret that we're entering a completely new era with this Trump trip initiative. I mean, the relations between Armenia and the United States. And I would like to ask you, what activities are you undertaking in this regard, and how do you adjust your steps when you need to align your advocacy support in this context?
Sure. Well, thank you. Nice to meet you, as always, here in Yerevan. I travel back and forth between Yerevan and the United States frequently. You know, we've worked with successive administrations, both here in Armenia and in the United States. So the difference now is this initiative, which was started by the Biden White House, is now been passed or been basically initialed with the help of the Trump White House. So I think President Trump deserves some credit for getting the parties together, Azerbaijan and Armenia, at the White House and initialing the agreement. We understand that this is not a ratification of the agreement. It's a bilateral that the U.S. participated in. We hope that it turns into something of substance. But for our work, it hasn't changed. Our job is security, and more security for Armenia. So we're looking at this from the U.S.-Armenia perspective. We're encouraging a stronger, a deepening security and economic relationship between the United States and Armenia. And we think that this may help. Now, the devils are always in the details. So, as Americans saying,
my favorite one.
Good. So let's see what happens. I mean, we're not necessarily happy that there's still issues unresolved. We're absolutely unhappy that there are still hostages being held in Baku. You can't have peace and hold someone else as hostages. And President Trump did bring that up And I'm sure it's highly on the agenda of the Armenian government. But I would say that...
But it's a question of controversy, I think.
Not for me at all. Not for me at all. As a matter of fact, I would say to President Aliyev, if one of those hostages die, the peace deal is probably going to be dead, because Armenians in this country really value those people. I mean, we understand that it's a process that must take place through the courts, but frankly, we don't believe the trial we believe it's a sham trial. But that being said, those hostages need to be released. If they're not released, it's really not going to fare well for peace.
But here we deal with the Azerbaijani Red Cross, which is closed now. The question is very hard to have a conclusion in this case, because hostages, we have no news from them. It was the only way to know something about...
I mean, so look, there's no secrets in the world. Azerbaijan is an authoritative country. And when you let the Red Cross, or you require that NGOs and the Red Cross leave, it shows that they're authoritarian. So I think they're going to have to be pretty much forced to do some of the things that need to be done. Armenia, on the other hand, is a very free and open society, Christian society, where you have multiple voices. Some we don't like to hear sometimes, but it's a democracy, so that's okay. But really, the Trump administration is going to have to bear down quite hard on Mr. Aliyev to release those Christian prisoners.
Now I want to go to the investment part. What is the Armenian Assembly of America's assessment of the $145 million investment from the U.S.? And do you think it will play the role it is meant to?
Good question. I've always asked for $1 billion from the United States. It's my government, so I can say, if you're going to give Israel multiple billions of dollars, or Egypt, or other countries, then Armenia deserves $1 billion. In this case, right out of the gate, we used to get 35, 40, 50 million. So obviously, I give some credit to this government, to the Trump administration, for asking for, or writing into their budget, 145. A lot of that's going to go for TRIP, for the road, and for the transit route. And for logistics. And you can see that sort of getting going. Again, we're really interested in what's going to happen here in terms of development. There's definitely the development of nuclear, and we'll see if Westinghouse has been bidding for that. Let's see if small nuclear comes to Armenia. You know, we also understand, let's be clear, the Armenian Assembly does not interfere in Armenia's politics, nor does it interfere in elections in America. We all have our own political values, and we participate. But as a group, we educate American lawmakers, congressmen, senators. Here, we talk to our Armenian counterparts, and we understand at the end of the day that they're going to do what's in their best interest. But we really hope that the money used here is used properly. U.S. money does not get distributed that widely anymore after the closing of USAID. So Armenia really needs to show itself to use the funds coming from the United States well. And I think that that's something that's a high priority for us. Security and economic development go hand in hand. So if we're going to have secure borders, we're going to have a lot of technology on the borders, a lot of training. And look, we understand that Armenia has a relationship with Russia, with Iran, with Georgia, with Europe.
And there are some red lines, as Iran mentions.
Yeah, and it's good that when TRIP was announced, there was some pushback from some countries, but it seems pretty certain that everyone can live with TRIP. There's no boots on the ground here of U.S. troops in Armenia. The Russians are obviously leaving some of their positions. Armenia's taking security on its own. It's taking its own security, and that's important. It has to stand up as a free country, a secure country. It's getting a lot more weapons from outside sources, so that's encouraging as well.
So can we conclude that Armenia is responsible for its own security?
I think that's the ultimate goal. We, as Armenian Americans, are there to ensure that Armenia has what it needs, whether it be from the United States, France, and I'm sure other countries are supplying Armenia as well, but certainly from the West, that is sort of our emphasis, clearly from the United States, to make sure it has what it needs.
You were talking about economics. It's really pretty important. But does this trip promise us a better economical environment, if we can
Yeah, I mean,
say so.
I'm going to back you up there. I was security, security, security. Economics follows security. As our co-chairman, Oscar Totosian, was saying, where there's American interests economically, security follows. But Armenia has to lay the table by itself for its own security, making sure that the military is fully capable of defending its borders and defending against enemies. Now, I give the military here high marks because they are now integrating multiple systems into their military. That's great. That's very good. But our military officers have to be paid well, trained well here. They have to have the best education. That's something we aspire to reach. It's good that things are moving in the right direction. It doesn't have to be the largest military, but it does have to be the most equipped and intelligent military. So those kind of things, security and economy, are going to follow each other. I am sure if you ask people in Goris, in Kapan, they're excited about an economic engine in the south. But before we have an economic engine, we need peace. A durable and just peace is what Secretary Rubio said. So we're looking at Azerbaijan right now. We're saying, show us a just peace, a durable peace. How is that going to work when you hold hostages and you do not allow Artsaksis to return? Now, there's another question we have to tackle. People have a right under international law to go back to their homes and villages. So Artsaksis must have that right. Now, that being said, most importantly, captives cannot be held by another country in the time of peace. Mr. Aliyev will turn it. He will say they were subversives, they're treasonous. Artsakh, for the period of 30 years, was recognized by France, Russia, and the United States, the OSCE Minsk Group. That's why Mr. Aliyev wanted to take it off the table, because they were recognizing Artsakh. They had leaders. Those leaders are in jail. They need to be released.
So we are talking about the just peace, not us, but Aliyev. And he said that no one will step back. But the issue of hostages, can't it just make them to step back?
I don't think Mr. Aliyev, as far as this deal goes, we have to see him actually take action to show he wants peace. Every agreement Mr. Aliyev has signed, he has broken. Let's see if he will actually live by this agreement. And by living by that agreement, you would have to release the hostages held in Baku.
Lately, Mr. Pashinyan, the Prime Minister of Armenia, mentioned that the military tool should be the last security tool for us. What do you think? Is it so? It's a banal question, but I want your comment.
I attended a seminar at the Army War College, and they say peace through strength. That's their motto. So here in Armenia, I think it should be the same motto: peace through strength. You don't use your military; it's the last thing you use. But to the point that we were trying to make, Mr. Aliyev knows quite well that during the Minsk negotiations for those 30 years, his negotiators were at the table, Armenia was at the table, Russia, France, and the United States. Now moving forward, the United States has taken a very principled role in this. I'm sure Russia is still involved in discussions between the two, and I know that Europe is involved. So the same parties are at the table. Let's be honest. The question is, will the actors, will the president and the prime minister live up to a durable and just peace?
How do you work with the Armenian government? Do you primarily support what they do in the US, or do you seek to combine and balance both Armenia's and diaspora's agendas?
So as Armenian Americans, we always tell people the Armenian Assembly does not interfere into internal politics in Armenia. So therefore, we don't have a horse in this race. Our job is to align our values. So when we speak with the Republic of Armenia's government, we see what their priorities are, and we did meet with the government. We met with the National Security Council minister. We meet with the president, we meet with the prime minister, we meet with our ambassador in Washington, the Armenian ambassador in Washington. We meet with our ambassador here, the United States ambassador here, to try to understand how we align our values. So as we meet, we go back and we set our agenda based on shared values. We have our own agenda items as Armenian Americans, obviously. We have issues of making sure that Armenians have the same rights, Armenian Americans in the United States, as everyone else. And if there's a reason that something doesn't go right, we're there to fight against that injustice. But frankly, we work with the government of Armenia to strengthen U.S.-Armenia relations. Our job is not to interfere. We don't get involved in their political cycles. We won't get involved when they elect parliament in 2026. We wait till a government is established, and then we work with that government. I've had the good fortune of coming to Armenia since 1987, so I've worked with every successive governments of Armenia, from Levon Der-Petrosyan to the current Prime Minister Pashinyan government and those in between.
Some fresh news from today in the U.S. Congress. Representatives Dina Tatas and Gaz Valerakis have introduced the Azerbaijan Sanctions Review Act of 2025. What is it? The measure calls on the Trump-Vance administration to consider sanctions against senior Azerbaijani officials under the Global Magnitsky Act, citing some war crimes, human rights violations, and of course the unlawful detention of Armenian prisoners of war and civilians. I want to know your opinion on this issue. Like, what do you think? How will this affect the Armenian prisoners and their families, and why is this legislation important for the Armenian community?
That's a very good question, and that's a very good piece of legislation that was introduced. If anyone knows the history of the negotiations, the Biden administration said they will take the same principles or very similar principles that were just initialed. The difference was the previous administration would not have released sanctions on Azerbaijan or Armenia. They would not sell weaponry and all those things until they ratified the agreement. The Trump administration released 907. Now, I'm not sure if that was part of a negotiation, but certainly in any kind of agreement, people give up things. I would not have given up 907 if I was Armenia, because having sanctions on Azerbaijan is a very powerful tool to making sure that an agreement gets ratified. Do I believe President Aliyev will ratify an agreement? I probably don't believe it, because we've taken off a lot of the levers on him to. He may find that President Trump is going to force him into this, which is the only reason. Now, why do we like this act that was just introduced? Because it says sanctions will be imposed on individuals. The Magnitsky Act says individuals from Azerbaijan, from other countries who aid or abet the corrupt practices cannot come to the United States. So that being said, 907 can still be imposed. It was just waived this year, but it could be reimposed in a year. So I'm not saying that 100% it's off the table. 907 is not gone. It just was waived once the initial agreement, the agreement was initialed. Okay. That being said, this is a good piece of legislation. I commend the Congresswoman and the Congressman and all the Congress for looking into this and hopefully passing a sanctions bill. Why? Because it holds the parties accountable to act in good faith to bring forward a durable and just peace.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up in the second half of the program, we'll follow Armenia's Minister of Defense to China, discuss Armenian-Turkish relations, cover Trump's historic visit to England, and recap the 1,300th day of the Russian-Ukrainian war. Strengthening Armenian-Chinese ties, Armenia's defense minister visits China. The opening of the Armenia-Turkey border, a gateway to new economic opportunities. Day 1,300 of the Russia-Ukraine war, as events in Gaza are labeled genocide. A French menu for an Anglo-American meeting, Trump's visit to the United Kingdom. Armenia and China have established a concrete partnership that needs to be expanded, particularly through mutual investment, Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan announced in a recent briefing. Underscoring the deepening ties, Armenia's Defense Minister Suren Babagan visited China. While in Beijing for the Xianchan Security Forum, Babagan attended an official reception hosted by General Zhang Yuexia, Vice Chairman of China's Central Military Commission. According to his office, Babagan also held informal talks with top Chinese military leaders, including General Zhang, Defense Minister Admiral Dong Yun, and other high-ranking officials, signaling a growing engagement between the two nations' defense establishments.
The 12th Xiangshan Forum in Beijing, one of Asia's most important security summits, has gathered over 1,800 participants from 100 countries and international organizations. The theme, upholding the international order and promoting peaceful development, is focused on global security challenges, particularly in the context of the 80th anniversary of the victory over fascism and militarism. Armenia's Minister of Defense is also among the attendees. Suren Papakyan was present at the grand opening ceremony and the plenary session, and earlier participated in an official multilateral reception hosted on behalf of the Vice Chairman of the Central Military Commission. The head of Armenia's Defense Ministry, who has also attended the forum for the past 2 years, discussed issues related to regional stability and military technical cooperation between the two countries with his Chinese counterparts. According to China's Minister of Defense, the forum's goal is to create a platform for international dialogue. Defense Minister Dong Zhan stated that China has positioned itself as a force for peace, opposing the law of the jungle and the hegemonic logic of the United States.
We must be vigilant against the obsession with absolute military superiority. The might is right approach will lead to a divided world governed by the law of the jungle and disorder.
Dong Zhan's speech follows recent messages from President Xi Jinping against hegemonism and power politics, as well as a massive military parade in Beijing earlier this month that showcased advanced weaponry. This peaceful image also stands in contrast to threats concerning Taiwan.
The Chinese People's Liberation Army acts as an invincible force in defending national unity and will never allow any separatist plot for Taiwan independence to succeed. We are always prepared to crush any attempt by external forces to interfere with the Taiwan issue.
Analysts view these statements as a hybrid strategy, a readiness to use force seasoned with talk of peace. East Asia expert Raymond Kuo believes the forum is just one component of a broader strategy to gather like-minded nations.
China is trying to create its own separate system and convince friendly countries to become a part of it.
According to analysts, the 12th Xiangshan Forum strengthens China's diplomatic influence by showcasing its soft power. However, it has also highlighted the deepening tensions between major powers, particularly China and the United States. The messages delivered in Xiangshan and Tianjin could influence future negotiations on global security. Mary Danielian, ReOpen Media.
And now some fresh news from Hague. Armenia has officially joined the Permanent Court of Arbitration, with its foreign ministry declaring the move as a direct result of the nation's experience with conflict and its commitment to the principle of right over might. The accession was marked by a high-profile ceremony at the Peace Place in The Hague, attended by top legal figures including the president of the International Criminal Court and foreign diplomats. The event featured the unveiling of Armenia's national chair in the court's administrative council. In a speech, Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan said Armenia's decision reflects its national experience. We perhaps better than many know the importance of impartial dispute resolution mechanisms where rights prevails over might and dialogue over coercion, Mirzoyan stated. It is in the spirit that Armenia sees the Permanent Court of Arbitration as a bridge to a more just and peaceful future. Against the backdrop of developing Armenian-Iranian relations, the conclusion of the ambassador's mission to Armenia is noteworthy. Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan held a farewell meeting with the ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Iran to Armenia, Mehdi Sobhani, who is concluding his diplomatic mission. The Prime Minister noted that cooperation between Armenia and Iran has been elevated to a new level in all areas in recent years, highlighting Ambassador Sobhani's personal contribution to this progress. Ambassador Sobhani thanked the Prime Minister and the government for the active and effective dialogue, emphasizing that he made every effort to strengthen bilateral ties during his tenure. The ambassador also expressed his gratitude for being awarded the Order of Friendship and affirmed that he will continue to do everything possible to deepen and strengthen Armenian-Iran relations in the future. The Secretary of the Security Council also thanked the ambassador for his work and emphasized that during his tenure, multifaceted relations between Armenia and Iran have been elevated to a new level. By the way, while we're searching for reasons to renounce the image of Ararat, Ruben Ruminian, Armenia's special representative for the normalization of Armenia-Turkey relations and Deputy Speaker of Parliament, said on public television that the next meeting of the special representatives could take place in Turkey. Of the 6 meetings, this was the first and only one held in Armenia. The rest took place either in a third country or at the border. Ruminian considered the meeting in Armenia a step forward. The date of the next meeting is not yet clear. The prospect of open borders with Turkey is a double-edged sword for Armenia. On one side, ties the opportunity for major economic gains, from cheaper logistics to a new market for its electricity. But on the other is the looming threat of Turkish economic expansion and a flood of imports that could challenge local businesses. Now, as the normalization process continues, the critical question is whether Armenia can harness the benefits while successfully navigating the risks. Anna Harchunian takes a closer look.
During the 6th Yerevan meeting of the Special Representatives for the Armenia-Turkey normalization process, Ruben Rubinian and Serdar Kulik, the parties reaffirmed previous agreements. They agreed to accelerate the process of opening the border and to deepen cultural and educational cooperation, including scholarships and the restoration of the Ani Silk Road Bridge. The launch of flights by new airlines from 2026 was also discussed.
I see no reason why Turkey should delay on this issue. In any case, there is no issue of delay from the Armenian side. We are ready to have open borders and establish diplomatic relations as soon as tomorrow. Incidentally, we recently established diplomatic relations with Pakistan, and that is also a very significant event. I hope we will take a similar step with Turkey as well.
Although the border is closed, Armenia imports hundreds of millions of dollars worth of goods from Turkey annually and exports a small volume, mainly jewelry. According to economist Haykaz Fanyan, Armenia's primary benefit from open borders would be the reduction of logistics costs. Currently, goods reach Turkey via Georgia, which creates additional difficulties and expenses.
When we open the borders and these relations are normalized, it will naturally help reduce the prices of goods exported from Armenia, as well as the prices of imported goods. And we get an alternative to Georgia for using the Black Sea port of Trabzon and a Mediterranean port, as well as for accessing Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq through Turkish territory. This is significant as it will allow us to reduce our costs and increase the competitiveness of our products in those markets.
In the EU, environmentally friendly products are prioritized, so entering the Turkish market could be advantageous for Armenia. Studies show that some Armenian agricultural products are competitive. Moreover, Armenia has a surplus of electricity.
Turkey itself has a high demand for electricity with a so-called low-carbon footprint, and we can provide that. They currently use a large amount of coal in their thermal power plants, which emits more greenhouse gases than, for example, the natural gas that we use.
Opening the border also carries risks. The specialist believes that Turkish goods will become more competitive, though they are already widely imported into Armenia. There are no deep calculations on which country would benefit more. There are both positive and negative impacts, but there is no quantitative assessment to provide a clear picture of the extent of the gains or losses, Fanyan notes.
Turkey's eastern regions are underdeveloped compared to the main territories of the Republic of Armenia. In reality, we have serious economic opportunities to establish cooperation with Turkey, especially with its eastern regions. It's possible that at some point, for example, people from Kars might come to Gyumri to receive more affordable medical care or to use other services that are not available in those underdeveloped eastern regions.
The representatives of the two countries also agreed that the necessary technical studies will be carried out for the restoration and operation of the Gyumri Kars Railway and the electricity transmission line. This development follows the nationalization of the Electric Networks of Armenia, ENA, but The Economist believes that linking these two factors is unfounded.
The high-voltage grids in Armenia are managed by a separate company, not by ENA. They are managed by the High-Voltage Electric Networks, state-owned, closed joint stock company, which remains state-owned today. The export or transmission of electricity is carried out through these high-voltage electric networks, and it has absolutely no connection to the context of ENA.
The agreements reached are still in the phase of technical studies and accelerating previous understandings. How quickly these technical discussions will turn into practical, tangible results, such as the actual opening of the border, will be shown by the future course of the negotiations. Anna Haratunyan, ReOpen Media.
The head of the Armenian Apostolic Church, Catholicos Karagin II, met with Pope Leo XIV at the papal summer residence of Castel Gandolfo, using the high-level meeting to highlight the urgent humanitarian crisis facing Armenians displaced from Nagorno-Karabakh. During the meeting, the Catholicos congratulated the pontiff on his recent election and his 70th birthday, expressing confidence that relations between the Armenian Apostolic and Catholic churches would continue to develop in a fraternal spirit. While the two leaders discussed global challenges, the Armenian Patriarch drew the Pope's attention to several critical issues. He voiced deep concern over the preservation of Armenian spiritual and cultural heritage in Nagorno-Karabakh, which he said is a risk of destruction, and stressed the imperative of securing the release of remaining prisoners of war and hostages. The meeting concluded with Catholicos Karagin II extending a formal invitation to Pope Leo XIV to visit Armenia. But now, let us put aside these Caucasus dramas. And so he continues the era of historic meetings. The dove of peace, the future Nobel Prize winner, the 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump. The King of England and the US President met. And the headlines on CNN and the BBC are buzzing about this earth-shattering event. Amid the thunder of horse hooves and the sound of military bands, President Donald Trump received a lavish royal welcome at Windsor Castle on Friday. But in a visit defined by pageantry, it was a moment of striking déjà vu with King Charles III that captured the spotlight. The historic day began when Rain 1 touched down, with the President and First Lady Melania Trump greeted first by the Prince and Princess of Wales, and then formally welcomed by the King and Queen. The couples then embarked on a grand carriage procession, with Trump and the King riding together in the Irish state coach, escorted by the household cavalry as both nations' anthems played. CNN reports the centerpiece of the ceremony came during the formal inception of the honor guard in the castle's quadrangle. As he did with Queen Elizabeth II in 2019, President Trump was seen walking several paces ahead of the monarch. While the move many raise eyebrows, Buckingham Palace has previously stated it does not constitute a breach of protocol. Any questions of etiquette, however, seemed to fade as the two leaders appeared in high spirits, sharing a joke as they walked. The jovial mood underscored the personal diplomacy at the heart of the state visit. Following the outdoor ceremonies, the diplomatic engagement continued behind castle walls, where the Trumps joined the royal family for a private lunch and a specially curated viewing of U.S.-related artifacts from the priceless royal collection. More details in the report.
U.S. President Donald Trump has arrived in the United Kingdom for his second state visit, calling it a great honor. "So many things are warming my heart here," said Trump, whose mother was Scottish and who owns 2 golf courses in the United Kingdom. Trump referred to the 76-year-old King Charles, who was receiving treatment for cancer, as my friend. The The highest level of ceremonial visit for the leader of a superpower to Great Britain began with royal splendor and heightened security measures. At Windsor Castle, Charles III and members of the royal family greeted Donald and Melania Trump with a parade of carriages on the royal carpet. The ceremony was meticulously observed in all its details. A red carpet, the United States national anthem performed by a military band, followed by a traditional procession of carriages, during which King Charles and President Trump conversed in one carriage, while Queen Camilla and First Lady Melania Trump were in another. These special relations have come a long way. Once a rebellious colony, the United States won its independence from the British Empire by force of arms. However, in the 20th century, the former colonizer and colony became inseparable allies. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer hopes to use the royal splendor and ceremony to Britain's advantage, as his government seeks to strengthen the special relationship between the two countries, deepen economic ties, secure billions of dollars in investment, and discuss tariff issues. Downing Street hopes to use the ceremonial splendor of this visit for clear practical purposes. Starmer expects to extract certain commitments from the U.S. president in negotiations on the issues of Ukraine and Israel. However, alongside the royal reception in London, there have also been protests with various satirical displays. 4 people were arrested for projecting images of Donald Trump and the alleged sex offender Jeffrey Epstein on the wall of Windsor Castle with bright lights. Polls show that Donald Trump's personality is not unequivocally perceived in Britain. To ensure the security of the protest organized by the Stop Trump Coalition, more than 1,600 additional police officers have been deployed in the capital. The true results of this visit will only become clear after the carriage procession disappears behind the gates of Windsor Palace and the real negotiations begin behind closed doors. Ana Harutunyan, ReOpen Media.
This week marked the 1,300th day of the Russian-Ukrainian war. Almost 4 years of fighting with no ceasefire, no way out, and no certainty. Despite attempts at negotiations and with Trump stubbornly pushing for peace. And here are the latest developments. Ukraine struck key Russian oil facilities in the Bashkortostan and Volgograd regions with drones, continuing its campaign against Russia's energy sector. Russia claimed its military reached the Ukrainian village of Yampol and that its forces are gaining ground in almost all directions along the front. Ukrainian President Zelensky insisted that Russia has suffered heavy losses in the eastern city of Pokrovsk amid a heroic defense by his troops. Latvia identified debris from a non-explosive Russian decoy drone that washed up on its Baltic coast.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has declared that NATO is de facto at war with Russia through its direct and indirect support for Ukraine.
It can be said with absolute certainty that NATO is fighting against Russia.
This statement followed the violation of the airspace of NATO members Poland and Romania by Russian drones and the development of response measures within the North Atlantic Alliance. The alliance condemned Russia's reckless behavior and announced the launch of a new initiative called Eastern Sentry, aimed at strengthening the security of the alliance's eastern borders.
The alliance is not at war with Russia, but is determined to defend every inch of NATO territory.
Unprepared for a bilateral summit, Russia and Ukraine continue large-scale attacks on strategically important targets. Ukraine has carried out special operations against Russian railway infrastructure, and on Sunday night, Ukrainian drones struck Russia's largest oil refinery in the Leningrad region, where a major fire broke out. The Russians, in turn, launched massive strikes on military transport infrastructure, drone storage and launch sites, and temporary deployment points for military personnel in 149 districts. In the initial phase of the war, Russia quickly captured about 27% of Ukraine's territory. However, as a result of Ukrainian counteroffensives, as of September 2025, Russia controls around 18 to 19% of the country's territory, including almost the entire Lugansk region, a significant part of Donetsk, the southern parts of Zaporizhia, and the left bank areas of the Kherson region. Incidentally, these 4 regions were declared an inseparable part of Russia during during an official ceremony in Moscow on September 30th, 2022. However, in recent months, during Trump's mediation efforts, the Russian side has indicated it is ready to negotiate over the territories of Kherson and Zaporizhia. Recently, Russian forces have registered advances in the Pokrovsk district, while the Ukrainian army has had tactical successes in the north of the Sumy region. Official and independent data on the losses of the conflicting parties differ significantly. Western intelligence sources estimate Russia's military losses at 350,000 to 400,000, and Ukraine's at 250,000 to 300,000. According to UN data, the number of civilian casualties exceeds 70,000. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine presents much higher figures, claiming that Russian losses have exceeded 1 million. The Russian Ministry of Defense, in turn, regularly reports the killing of thousands of Ukrainian servicemen and also puts the enemy's losses at 1 million. Both warring countries have suffered enormous, record-breaking losses of military equipment amounting to tens of thousands of units, including tanks, armored vehicles, artillery systems, and aviation equipment. Western military and financial support continues to be the main pillar of Ukraine's resistance. The U.S. alone has allocated more than $180 billion, while the EU and other NATO allies have provided another approximately $120 billion. This aid includes Patriot and HIMARS systems, Abrams and Leopard tanks, and F-16 fighter jets. Ukraine's war expenses amount to $172 million per day. According to data from the Rada's Budget Committee, Ukraine's defense spending already exceeds 31% of its GDP. If the war with Russia continues into its fourth year, Ukraine will require at least $120 billion for defense in 2026. U.S. President Donald Trump, who previously promised to end the war in one day, recently admitted that the conflict is much more complicated to resolve than expected.
The hatred between Zelensky and Putin is boundless. They hate each other so much they can't breathe. We will resolve this issue one way or another, so I will have to get involved.
Western allies are now discussing providing post-war security guarantees for Ukraine, as well as the deployment of European peacekeepers in the event of a ceasefire. This war, which has lasted for more than 3.5 years and is the bloodiest in Europe since World War II, continues with no end in sight. It has led to hundreds of thousands of deaths, millions of refugees, with 10 million people having left Ukraine alone, according to various estimates, and widespread destruction, irreversibly deepening the confrontation between Russia and the West, according to experts.
And the humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in Gaza has now been labeled a genocide, a term the international community is increasingly unwilling to avoid. And Israel's military operation continues. A mass exodus is underway. Thousands of Palestinians carrying what possessions they can are fleeing south from Gaza City along the coastal road. Their fight comes as Israeli tanks push into the city, severing communication lines. Now, a United Nations Commission has formalized the accusation in a new report, charging Israel with committing genocide against the Palestinians. The report issues clear demands: an immediate end to the offensive, the lifting of the blockade, full access for humanitarian aid, and a halt to all arms transfers to Israel from the UN member states. The stark allegations come amid staggering casualty figures. According to health authorities in Gaza, more than 65,000 Palestinians have been killed in 2 years. In comparison, Israeli figures state that the Hamas attack of October 2023 killed 1,200 people and resulted in 251 being taken hostage. This catastrophe, by the way, is also why several European countries have pulled out of performing due to Israel's participation. This is not the first fight against their participation, but they are unyielding and continue to be involved in the competition with high placements.
Finalists.
Public broadcasters from several participating countries have officially announced their intention to boycott the Eurovision Song Contest if Israel takes part in the Pan-European Festival. The reason cited is the ongoing military operations in Gaza, which have resulted in tens of thousands of civilian casualties.
At present, Spain, Ireland, the Netherlands, Slovenia, and Iceland have threatened to withdraw from the competition, which is set to be held in Vienna. The board of Spain's public broadcaster, RTVE, voted 10-4 to boycott the contest. This decision is particularly significant as Spain is a member of the Big Five, one of the primary financial contributors to the competition. Irish broadcaster RTE has also confirmed its position. CEO Kevin Bockhurst stated that an Israeli artist's performance would be unacceptable as long as the human losses in Gaza continue.
Given the ongoing severe suffering of the residents of Gaza, Ireland's official broadcaster RTE can no longer justify Israel's involvement in the current situation.
The Netherlands, Slovenia, and Iceland have also joined the boycott calls. This controversy echoes the events of 2024, when several countries protested Israel's participation during the war between Israel and Palestine. Ireland's contestant, Bambi Thug, announced they were not prepared to perform their Eurovision song as long as Israel continued to compete. The Dutch representative, Joost Klein, was even disqualified after openly expressing his discontent. During a pre-Eurovision press conference, he publicly draped his country's flag over his face to avoid seeing the Israeli participant. Greece's entrant pretended to be asleep during Israel's press appearance. Even the public in the host country, Sweden, expressed its sentiment with a reported attack on the bus transporting the Israeli singer. Israel's performance itself was accompanied by boos and overt expressions of disapproval from the audience. Reports have circulated that the European Broadcasting Union, EBU, suggested Israel temporarily withdraw from the contest for 1 or 2 years, or compete under a neutral flag. However, this information has not yet been officially confirmed. Fans and broadcasters are drawing comparisons to the case of Ukraine, as the EBU disqualified Russia almost immediately after the full-scale war began, arguing that its participation would bring the contest into disrepute. That same year, Ukraine's Kalush Orchestra won with their song Stefania, which had wartime motifs, receiving a record-breaking number of public votes despite not being an initial favorite. In subsequent years, Ukraine has continued to place high, with numerous participants and audience members displaying Ukrainian flags in a show of support. In response to the boycott threats, several other countries have voiced their support for Israel. Germany and Italy, 2 other Big Five members, have warned the EBU that they will withdraw from the contest if Israel is disqualified. Other countries reportedly expressing support include Austria, the host country for the 2026 contest, Switzerland, Cyprus, Greece, and Azerbaijan. Armenia has not yet made any official comment on its position regarding the camps forming for and against Israel's participation. Monica Haroyan, ReOpen Media.
While Armenia's government says it is focused on establishing regional peace, a wave of internal dissent is sweeping across its neighboring countries, sparking protests and public outcry. The turmoil varies by country. In Turkey, citizens have taken to the streets to protest a government crackdown on political opposition. In Georgia, what have become traditional pro-Western demonstrations continue to fill the streets. And in Azerbaijan, the parents of soldiers are protesting after a ban on family visits was reportedly imposed due to an outbreak of respiratory illnesses among the troops.
In Azerbaijan, relatives of soldiers have blocked the entrance to a military base and are demanding a meeting with the conscripts. Some parents even tried to get past the gates, demanding an opportunity to see their sons. The wave of protest arose after the Ministry of Defense announced a temporary ban on visits to military bases. The ministry explained the decision as a measure to prevent the spread of respiratory illnesses, including the flu. In Baku, these restrictions are repeated periodically, especially during conscription periods, but each time the public reacts strongly to the visitation ban. In Turkey, opposition protests are gaining momentum. About 50,000 supporters of the Republican People's Party have gathered in a square in Ankara ahead of a court hearing. The court is expected to annul the results of the party's 2023 Congress and remove CHP leader Özgür Özel from his post. The political party rejects the accusations of vote rigging and calls the case political persecution.
This case is political. The accusations are slander. Our friends are innocent. A coup is taking place. A coup against the future president, the future government. We will resist. We will resist. We will resist.
Last year, the opposition defeated President Erdogan's ruling Justice and Development Party in local elections, and according to opinion polls, it is shaping positive public opinion. According to Reuters, over 500 people from the opposition party have been arrested in about a year, including 18 mayors. In March, Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu was arrested, which also caused mass protests. A few days later, the politician was removed from office and accused of bribery. In July, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison. The 53-year-old İmamoğlu is considered Erdogan's main rival in Turkey's 2028 presidential election. The country's major opposition party has confirmed Ekrem İmamoğlu's candidacy for the head of state in the upcoming elections. Tensions are also not subsiding in our other neighboring country, Georgia. On the 291st day of the pro-European protest, citizens gathered on Rustaveli Avenue in front of the Parliament building, demanding new, fair parliamentary elections and the release of those arrested and convicted on charges of rioting during the protests. Under the slogan, "The arrest of Levin Kabishvili, the head of the National Movement City Council, will not change the plan for October 4th," Georgian citizens have announced a large-scale rally plan for that day. According to them, regions will also join the October 4th protest in parallel with Tbilisi. The protesters are demanding political changes. During the latest protest, Elaine Costaria, a member of the Coalition for Change organization, wrote a protest message on a poster of Kaha Kaladze, Russian Dream. Following this, police surveillance has been established near Kaladze's posters. Mary Danielian, ReOpen Media.
And now to the social media. The Walt Disney Company's ABC network has pulled Jimmy Kimmel Live off the air indefinitely. Sources tell CNN following a firestorm of controversy over comments that host made regarding the killing of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk. The public backlash ignited online after a clip from Kimmel's Monday monologue went viral on the social media platform X. In the segment, Kimmel made remarks about Kirk's suspended killer that critics immediately condemned as callous and inappropriate. That single impactful clip became the catalyst for a massive online pressure campaign demanding his removal. The move drew a sharp reaction from FCC Chair Brendan Carr, who told Fox News that the suspension was now the last show to drop, and praised President Donald Trump for creating a massive shift in the media landscape. While the network has not issued a formal statement, a source familiar with the matter told CNN that Disney is hopeful there is a path to bring the show back, though no decision has been made. Kimmel, who has not yet commented publicly, is under contract with ABC through May 2026. And to sum up, be careful of success. It has a dark side. It was a warning that could have been uttered by one of his own complex characters, but it spoke to a life lived fully in the spotlight. Whatever dark corners that success may have held for Robert Redford, the world will remember the brilliant light of his talent. The actor, who passed away on September 16 at the age of 89, reportedly regretted nothing, believing he had given everything to his craft to the best of his abilities. His path to the Oscars and Golden Globes was a stunning reflection of what professional mastery, a journey that began not on a film set, but in the quiet aisles of a library. As a young boy, he was fascinated by Greek and Roman mythology, spending hours lost in ancient stories. That passion for narrative eventually led him to New York, where the next chapter of his life would begin. Redford began studying theater at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, laying the foundation for a legendary career. Today, he leaves us with a vast cinematic legacy, not only as an actor, but as a visionary who gave the world the Sundance Film Festival in Utah, forever changing the landscape of independent film.
Enough. Mr. Redford, sir. Robert, together.
This much for today. Stay informed with 3 News. I'm Sona Tumanyan. Good night.